Good evening. Welcome to another program of the Guyana Dialogue. As you know, Guyana Dialogue is put together by a group of Guyanese based in United States, Canada, UK, the Caribbean, and in Guyana. This program is being sponsored by Mr. Dave Narayan, well-known Guyanese business person and philanthropist, and he is the owner of Dave Western Impulse. Today we have as our guest the Honorable Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, Honorable Priya Manickchand, and our panelists are Professor Muniram Budu and Dr. Vishnu Bisram, who will join us momentarily.
Hello.
I take this opportunity now to introduce our Honorable Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, Honorable Priya Manickchand. I know you have been very busy, and we are very happy to have you. And you'll be doing some terrific work in the local government and regional ministry. But before we go into specifically to talk about the mission and work at your ministry, we just like you to give a general overview, if you have any insight into at least the budget, a glimpse of it, or even if you can restrict it to your ministry, if you like. But if you have some general feelings, what you think about the budget, that will be tabled next Monday.
Well, I think I reflect good night and happy new year. We're still in the new year. And in that period when we can wish good compliments for the rest of the new year. To you and your faithful audience, I think I've really enjoyed appearing on the Guyana Dialogue several times. Um, and yeah, we've had some good exchanges here. The budget. Everybody is very excited about budget because not only government ministers. In fact, I can't wait for the budget to be over. I want it to be read and
Mhm.
passed because those 2 weeks take up time that we have to spend uh, um, that we can begin to implement. Most people that I've spoken to are very, very excited because we've been very clear. The budget is the first year, this budget is going to be the first year of implementation of the things we promised. So we promised the nation a whole host of things under agriculture and education, health, um, communities, local government parks, playgrounds, sport, different laws, um, safety, and just a whole very well thought out manifesto was published. And that manifesto, we didn't come up with it on our own. It was after talking with communities and people across the country and hearing what it was that they wanted. Consultation, really, as is demanded from us in Article 13 of the Constitution. And that's how we came up with what was going to happen. And that's what we put into the manifesto. And this is the first budget of the second year finale term, where we're going to be able to start implementation of those promises and fulfilling those promises. So the population is really quite excited about getting that underway. I am impatient with beginning. And so, yeah, I think everybody's waiting for Monday with bated breath. And of course, Ashley Singh is an orator of no ordinary means, so people enjoy listening to him for his 5 hours of presentation. So they're looking forward to Monday.
Do
As
you find do you find the recent release of the 2022 census will help you as an important instrument to help plan the work of your ministry? The
uh,
census, like figures like population distribution and household size, etc.
Statistics are always very useful, and that's why things like the census or where we are in particular communities would be good. But we knew what the population wanted because the PPP as a political party is known for, and they're specialized in making sure we get uh, feedback or what we call bottom house contributions to what people want. And that's what informed what went into the manifesto. Now, what we're also known for, which is why it's a real pleasure to serve in this party and this government, is to make sure that service is universal. So it doesn't matter where people are, or what they look like, or how they worship, or how they vote, even. Uh, if we say we're going to give a cash grant for children, it's every child that's going to get that cash grant once they meet the eligibility criteria. If we say we're going to give farmers a particular uh, benefit, then all farmers will get that. So the census is useful. The census is always useful for planning purposes, but to the extent that it uh, allows for inclusion, it's we would include with or without numbers, without census numbers, because we have a fair idea of how many numbers we talk about, or how many persons we talk about under any particular benefit.
All right, thank you.
The budget planning process is meticulous. It begins sometime around July of the year before. So it's going to be read on Monday, but ministries have been submitting since last year, July, August, getting fine tuned. The budget director is a graduate of Columbia University, and she's very thorough. It's she and her team. Sonia Rupnot. It's a female budget director that we have, and she has an amazing amount of experience in this field. She's been budget director, I think, for about 15 years now, or a little bit longer. And prior to that, she was a permanent secretary um, in two ministries. So she has a wide range of experience. And then you have Dr. Ashley. So they fine tune numbers and drill into wheres and whys and feasibility and you know ability to execute programs from ministries. But the crafting of the budget is really done centrally. And it is always based on what promises we made and how we can fulfill those promises through the budgetary process.
All right, thank you. Just quickly before we put you on to Professor Boudou, you do you want to say a little about? I know there's a young ministry you have gone to, and there are many challenges ahead. And if you want to talk a little about you, how you view yourself in that ministry, and if you can let the public know what's the essential focus or the mission of the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development. We're joined now by Dr. Vishnu Visram. So, welcome, Vish.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I see you were trying to call me just now, Vishnu, but I'm on this.
I know. It's okay.
Yes. Yeah, if you can tell us just briefly about the mission of the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development.
So, local government and regional development is a really has a it's a ministry that came about to essentially decentralize services and perhaps power, and have a devolution of again um, power and resources. And so the idea was not to have the resources and services centered only in Georgetown. So through local democratic organs like regional democratic councils or neighborhood democratic councils, we wanted people, as a country, we wanted people to feel the service of government. And that was a really noble um, effort. I don't feel like since we've passed the legislation way back in 1980 that we examined whether effect was properly given to the intent of the legislation. I think it's a good time for a country to have a look at that now and see if we did what we expressed we wanted to do as a nation in those 1980 pieces of legislation. And this is a good time to see how we could make sure local democratic organs are more functional or more responsive or understand their role. Because I've been finding that they don't, and that they're serve the local communities in which they exist, whether it be a region or a neighborhood. So I think, and the services that are supposed to be decentralized are usual education, health, agriculture, infrastructure. Um, so the challenge is to determine as a country how we want to go forward in that build out of that legislation. Finally, looking at it, I think with more detailed eyes. Um, but I'm looking forward to it. It's a big task, uh, huge challenge, and it has scope all over the country.
Thank you,
This
Professor
afternoon,
Guru.
I was in East Rumvelt, Warlock, and Mango Lane, St. John Square, front circle, back circle. And it's beautiful when you walk through because there's so much that has been done in those communities. And I remember a time when those communities were so uh, neglected, neglected and brainwashed into believing certain things about political parties and so on that would have denied them the opportunity of seeing real service in action. But we never even in those times, because I remember going in there with Dr. Lunch in the very early days, and it was hard. It was a hard community. But now you're walking through these communities. In front circle, there's a futsal court. In the back circle, there's a basketball court. There are roads throughout the community. There's been a lot of neglect by the mayor and city council of Georgetown in the community in terms of what they can do, and that's why I was there to say uh, we can't leave that rot to the rot at City Hall, that is. Poor, petty, backward politics that have no place in a modern Guyana to suffer the people of Georgetown. And so I was in there giving them direct access to me and to the government through the Ministry of Local Government. And people were very welcoming, very receptive, very, yeah. So,
All right,
Uh,
thank you, Professor Guru.
Doctor, before Professor Buru come on, can I just quickly ask something related to that and the budget as well?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been traveling around Guyana for the last several days, and every time I come to Guyana, every 2 months or so, I do the same. Did the same. One of the complaints people have, and as you know, Minister, there will be a local government election later this year. I think it's due anyway. People are complaining, those who are serving on the NDCs, is that the stipends are very low. I was wondering if the budget could make some accommodation to increase the stipends for participants and the counselors in the NDCs so that you could attract more, what's the right term for it? More competent candidates, more informed candidates who will be better equipped to know their role in the NDCs.
well, there are two things you said that I don't really agree with there, Vishnu. The idea that a salary that you don't like could allow you not to serve or could dictate what kind of service you give. My position is if you take your holy book and take an oath or affirm that you will serve, then you should. And so we have to enable that service by building capacity and training, um, and in making sure people understand what their roles are vis-a-vis the laws that they work within and around, and how to be responsive. So we have a lot of training to do. We have a lot of building out of this local government system to do. There are conversations. So a lot of most public servants will tell you in many places in the world that they like to be better paid, and that is an active conversation. But the kind of work we require, I would venture even now that it has to be people who love community service and who would do it voluntarily, even. But we are talking about, yeah, there is talk about raising various fees. And I think both the president and general secretary of the party have indicated. But I don't subscribe, so I have to make that very clear. I don't subscribe to the idea that because uh, someone isn't paid what they think they're due or capable of or attracting, that service should reflect that belief. The local government bodies are elected bodies. These are people who offer themselves up for election, and then the people in the community say these are people we believe will serve us, and they vote for them.
Okay, Professor Buru.
Good. Minister, I'm glad you could return to this program. Your previous appearances here have been when you were Minister of Education. Now you have a different ministry. What are the major challenges you face?
At local government,
Yes.
I think it's the like I said, as a country, we didn't quite define for all of its existence what decentralization really should look like, and I think we have to determine that as a country. And then it's no longer dealing with one ministry; it's dealing with various services across various sectors in very many regions, dealing with all of Guyana. And so that alone requires a large number of players and people. And wherever you have a large enough number of providers of service, people serving, you'll have some who are excellent, you'll have some who are good, you'll have some who will work with all their heart, but they're just not capable. You'll have some who are delinquents. And so the effort now is to get everybody on various. So we have 70 NDCs yesterday. Up to yesterday, I'd met 46 of them, not just the chairpersons, but the entire NDC. I'm just trying to explain what their roles are, what we expect of them, how responsive we want them to be, what kind of service providers we'd like them to be. And I've discovered that they themselves don't yet know, although they've been in office in many cases for over a few years, they may not understand their full responsibility. They may not have been trained in certain areas. They may not have capacity in certain areas, but I think those are things we can fix. So if you know how I work, I generally see a problem as almost immediately with possible solutions.
Mhm. Now, could you explain what is RDC and NDC for
So
our
RDC means
viewers?
it means Regional Democratic Council, and that the chairman and the members of that council, they're usually elected at a regional and general election. So when we vote for the president every 5 years, we vote for the Regional Democratic Council and the members who will make that up. Neighborhood Democratic Councils are for neighborhoods, as it suggests, a smaller. So we have 10 regional democratic councils. Neighborhood democratic councils are for neighborhoods at defined boundary. So you would have something like the Bath Woodley Park NDC, which looks after Bath and Woodley Park, the villages of Bath, Woodley Park, and all the streets therein. Or you would have the Parika. So they have 70 NDCs across the country, including one in Region 9, a few in Region 1, 2 in Region 1, but 70 spread across the country. Of course, you have the Berbice area has 19, Region 5 has 10, Region 3 has 14. So the bigger regions have more. Then you have East Bank, East Coast. And then you have municipalities, which would be the leadership of the towns. That would be the mayor and town council at all our towns: Anna Regina, Georgetown, New Amsterdam, Rose Hall, Criverton, Lethem, the town. So it's different organs that manage the locality in which they exist. And then we have something called Community Development Councils, CDCs, which exist not only exist in areas that are not in the catchment of NDCs, that's the Neighborhood Democratic Councils, or sometimes they do exist in the catchment. It's really community development councils who get together or whose members get together to form a community that determines how the community can develop effectively in an organized way.
How they're related though? NDC, RDC, this community, how they're related? Because
so there's central government. There's central government, and then there's for each region there's a regional democratic council, and they are relatively autonomous in how they get their own budget, they get their own um, staff, they get their own, uh, and by staff I mean not only technical staff, but they get their own accountants and their own accounting system and their own, and they run the region, and then each and neighborhood democratic council, which is smaller now for neighborhoods, they have a council, they get a budget, well, they get a grant from the government. It used to be $5 million, it's just raised to $30 million. And they get to do small works that look after their neighborhood.
So is it fair to say that the mission of a neighborhood council is to make your neighborhood better? Is that correct?
Well, that's the idea.
That's the idea. So they could build, say, local roads and that kind of thing, right?
They can, but because of capacity issues, it has been dealt by central government. But they can use their grants to do things like that. But there will be serious capacity issues. To build a road, you have to have an engineer who will design it, who will supervise it, who will go out for procurement of it. And those are some complex processes sometimes that those councils would not have.
So who do it? The central government does, the RDC does it?
So it's a good question. And like I said, we have to better define who does what. Sometimes there is order and chaos too. But roads and public roads are dealt with by the Ministry of Public Works. Large drainage dealt with by the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, sometimes all over the country. Smaller drainage by the regions or another ministry. Housing may be dealing with roads in some communities, depending on where it is. So there is sometimes some overlapping of how that happens. The Ministry of Local Government might be building roads and drains and sidewalks. So in this new Guyana, where things are happening at a pace that is, I mean, if you guys have been here, and I know at least Uncle Tara and Vishnu have been here, the pace at which things have been happening it's you could find agencies falling over each other, but there has been some amount of order in how that has been done. But I think we could do it a little bit more.
Yeah, so when you look at what's going on, it's moving very fast. The physical infrastructure, but I visited the same time Tara did in November. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to come to the meeting with you. But one thing I noticed, there seems to be a breakdown of civic duties, and environmental is a problem. You look at some of these drains and gutters, right? They're all filthy. People dump all kinds of things in there. I think we had the opportunity to go to 63 Beach. It was really a mess, right? And not only Georgetown, but in the local community. I had the chance to go into my village. And I know when I was living there, the village, nobody throws things in the trench, because the trench is where you get your water from, you see. Now it's all kinds of plastic bottles and all kinds of mess in there. So is there any, you mentioned something about community relationship. Is any of those things going on in Guyana to change the mindset of people, that they have to, it's not only physical and structure, your culture has to change in a way?
Yeah, and we're very clear that this build out of this new Guyana is not going to be about high rises and roads and bridges alone. Our people will be brought along this journey, and that includes, in the last 5 years, we've trained more than 60,000 persons, mostly young people who ordinarily would have been without the access to that training on the Guyana Online Academy of Learning alone. So that's a program where we collaborate with 21 foreign universities to offer degrees, masters, PhDs, diplomas, and other training at no cost to the trainee, because the government is picking up the tab. So even as we build the high rises, we are training our people and giving them a better platform upon which they can function. As we have to build out a different culture. We have to build out a different respect for our environment, as you say. We have to build out, and those things come with not only um, the chatter about it or the education, but it also comes with facilities. You can't tell people dispose of your garbage in a bin. There's no bin for them to
Right.
dispose of the garbage in. So those are some of the things that are the irksome things around the country. We're going to be distributing within the next couple of days, I think about 15 garbage trucks. And then over the next 6 months when we receive them, we just bought in December 80 garbage trucks for the various communities so that we could help the NDCs. We can give them to the neighborhood democratic councils. They could run that and help to pick up their domestic waste. We are so even as we build out the infrastructure in Guyana, we're trying to make sure we are building out people that who can lead this country, who can dwell in this country, who could participate in this country, and who could be competitive in the world regarding, in any field, because of the training and education and different exposures that we're offering. But I agree with you; it is something we've spoken about, and so I think you might have heard our General Secretary of the PPP say that some of the heavy lifting is either over or in place or ongoing, and so this year is to focus on, or this term, even as those things continue, is to focus on making sure the quality of life in each home changes. And if you're going to change the quality of life in each home, then you have to make sure that home itself is not participating in some of the things that will interfere with its quality. And so we have a lot of educating to do.
Yeah, because you have to start at school, but the whole family has to be involved.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we've just engaged a company to help us start with behavioral change, as far as waste disposal of, as far as disposing of solid waste goes. Tomorrow we have a massive consultation at the Arthur Chung Conference Center in and around solid waste management legislation. So you'll see a human element in the build out of Guyana. It's not just going to be the hotels and the buildings. There's going to be heavy emphasis on what we want our people to look like, and to look like in the next 10 years, how we want them to behave and react. And you're going to see that emphasis on in many different ways across sectors.
Yeah, but I want to point out to you, but although you might provide, say garbage bins, right? People have to go and put the stuff in the garbage bin. And
Right.
you have to have maintenance. You have to have the services, right? Has to be on timely, you see. Otherwise, these things get overfilled, and then it's
So,
also damage the whole neighborhood.
So let me tell you, I think people, and I don't believe I'm naive here, I've tested it, people want better. So at the Starbrook Square, we used to pick up on any given day 50 to 60 large bags of garbage. Any day we went out there. And it used to happen every day. We put down bins, large receptacles, and we are now picking up 2 bags of garbage per day because people are using those bins. Now, the same people who are using it in that square are leaving that square and littering somewhere else, because there may not be facilities. Now, should they litter because there are no facilities? In an ideal world, no. We'd like you to put it in your pocket, take it home, and dispose of it when you get home. But we just had a massive problem across the town where the mayor and city council, the MNCC, that's the municipality of Georgetown, was not picking up garbage for the last 3 or 4 weeks. They were not doing their domestic collection, and that's how we had we had to get involved, and we will continue to be involved because this cannot be how we operate. But so it's not. I don't believe everyone will get on board simply because we put a bid in there. We still have work to do, but I believe that people also want to do better, and so the provision of resources is going to make a difference.
All right, thank you, Minister Asif. We'll take a little break now. Just a short break. We are back. Um, Minister, I want to ask you something. Who has the authority to impose tax? The RDCs or the NDCs or both?
It depends on where.
Property
Um,
tax.
Usually, the neighborhood democratic council or the municipality. But the government has been very clear that we aren't going to be raising taxes on residents, and so that has been a promise we made. So that won't be happening.
And going back to the question of waste disposal, I know Professor Boudou has raised it to these questions. So what about recycling? Has there been any movement to begin a recycling program for each region?
Yeah, so that's being we're looking at different models that are available. There's the model of going from waste to energy. There's the model of going from waste to fertilizer. So it depends on whichever community it's in. What we're currently doing is, and you're going to see that shortly, we're trying to build out landfill sites in all 10 regions. That's modern landfill sites, very as distinct from a dump site. Um, and that's the first big move. But then we're trying to see also how we can address every NDC, so every neighborhood democratic council. But the big move right now is to get off these landfill sites and the access to them, and the beginning of collection of large amounts of waste in those regions. There's also, so yeah, that's on solid waste.
Yeah. Before I pass on to Dr. Vishnu, some people have been advocating for greater authority to the RDCs and NDCs. You have any views on that?
Greater authority to do what? It
Greater
depends.
powers, they should have some control, not only like to impose tax, but to make decisions as to repair of roads, drainage, etc.
They can now. That information usually to
Yeah.
determine centrally what which roads we're going to do. The information for that comes from the local bodies. And then we compile it into one document and then determine which body is going to deal with that. So I don't think at this stage, I think capacity building would be useful in the NBCs.
Do
We'd have to look at what capacity they have.
okay.
So a lot of the NDCs last year, perhaps as a level of disaccustom,
Do
remember that word, when we began to give $30 million, which we have done, to
does,
each NDC, there are many NDCs who cannot spend that.
mm,
They don't have
does,
the capacity to spend it.
does the RDC has the authority to determine wage level for employees or
No,
the
that's centrally determined.
central government?
Yeah.
Okay, but they can hire people. They
Yes.
have the authority to hire. What about NDCs?
So there are processes for all the hiring, because you have to be very careful with entire autonomy. You could have people believing, so you have to be careful, especially in these economies, and we've been warning about that, about not blowing up your recurrent bills and making sure that the bills you have can be met. Usually they're fixed establishment numbers of persons who can be hired in a particular place. So you need what? 5 engineers, you need 10 clerks, you need 15 secretaries, you need 5 laborers in this particular NDC. Then they or region, then they have the ability to hire, recommend, and it goes through a central public service system. So in terms of that, they have authority and fair relative autonomy.
Finally, community development councils, do they have the blessings of your ministry? What's the level of interaction?
Yeah, they're actually registered under the ministry. Well, under a central government agency, either local government. We have some on the Ministry of Armenian Affairs because of they have Armenian communities and hinterland communities. But yes, they do. They were actually a creature of the PPP government, I shouldn't say creature, but the creation of the PPP government. And if you remember, Philomena Sahai Shuri was one
Yeah.
of the first persons who was put in charge of building that out nationally, um, what we used to call the fireball.
So they can approach you directly. You're,
Oh, they're part of us and what we want to do.
but they don't have to go
ADC
through
was
the NDC and RDC.
they're very different bodies.
Okay.
So they should be working in tandem. But I say should because I'm not sure that has been happening. So as I go out into communities, you realize where the gaps are. So you might have an RDC, which is a regional council, an NDC, and a CDC in the same area, and they're not talking to each other. So we
You're
have to
right.
change
Right.
that. We have to change.
Well, I know of one. Okay, Dr. Vishnu, over to you.
Well, firstly, I'd like to commend the minister because he has been very, very active. That a presence in many communities that I've talked about. Um, Now, one of the things I noticed that there is need for beautification. The first lady has done tremendous work. People speak glowingly about her work in some areas on beautification. I was wondering whether the ministry can expand that now in terms of the rural areas.
You're breaking up terribly, Vishnu, but I think what I'm hearing from you is that the First Lady has done amazing work in beautification, and she has. Her office, with very little resources, she's managed to leverage the private sector and work with government agencies to do some amazing work. And I think the second part of what you were saying is, or asking, is if it's going to be in rural areas. Right now, Bat Settlement and Bush Lot are two areas where she's on number 63 beach, uh, west coast on the west coast of Demerara, around Windsor Forest there, in Region 2. And she's working, very hard to nationally do beautification projects. And it sounds, I think it's delimiting to just call it beautification projects. They're building out of green spaces at Diamond, where it was before um, just an area that was full of refuse and parked vehicles and derelict places and so on. Offers a large community like Diamond on the East Bank the ability to have their people uh, enter, and it's an entire play area, it's an exercise area. It's it's so she's done some amazing work. It's national, and it's going to be multiplied this year, because hitherto she was working mostly with the Ministry of Public Works. This year we're going to throw our weight behind that also. And so there is a national build out of play spaces. This is something we promised. This is something we were very clear about. We wanted to build safe, wholesome communities, and part of wholesome would be uh, getting green spaces, getting play spaces, getting exercise spaces in each community. And so we're currently trying to identify spaces where, once the budget is passed, we're going to be able to build those out. We just came from Skull City. All Year's Day, Christmas Eve day, I was there. Skull City is so named because when people went there to squat 20 years ago, they found skulls because it's a old burial ground area. We're now regularizing that. Ministry of Housing has given title, or is in the process of giving title to all of the members who are living there. And we just found a really nice space where we're going to build out in this place that used to be a burial ground. We're going to build out this beautiful green space where there's a walking track around, play area for children, benches, little shops that people can buy at. That's what we're trying to do across the country. So it's building spaces in communities where families can enjoy wholesome activities like exercise and sunshine and play and commune amongst themselves in the community. It is looking at how we remove our solid waste. It's looking at how we look after our markets. So that's one of the things that's on our agenda, and heavy on our agenda, where we have markets that are either dilapidated, existing and dilapidated, or springing up around the country. So we want all markets to have some minimum standards. Protection from the weather, good solid protection from the weather. So that means good roofing and ceiling, good and excellent sanitary facilities, which is completely lacking in public facilities right now. Good sanitation, good ventilation, good plumbing, good electrical connections, safe spaces, so good security, safe spaces for both vendors as well as shoppers, and comfortable, organized spaces, not junkyards being built up all over the place. So that's on the agenda, and you know, I'm doing it exactly the way I did schools, and we're not looking at one at a time. We're looking at 20 at a time. So we called in all the design consultants and then got everybody to begin. So you're going to have a simultaneous build out of markets. You'll start seeing across the country fairly soon.
Just,
Yes.
just excuse me. Where is Skull City?
Skull City is in Region 3 on the
In
west
Wales?
bank of Demerara. It's past
Is
Wales.
it
It's
Wales?
going through there behind Potentia area. Yeah.
Okay,
So you
thank
kind of
you.
got an idea of where it is. There.
Sorry, Vish, go ahead.
No, I think the minister rightly pointed out that it's revenue generation as well in having these programs all over the country, and she did mention vending and so on. And a lot of vending is taking place in those areas where the first lady has done amazing, as she put it, at work, because you see a lot of a lot of food outlets have developed, and the area is extremely clean. There are garbage containers and so on, and so you don't see any of those things that Professor Manickchand talked about, where you have all these styrofoam being thrown into the trenches and drains and so forth. So I really want to salute the government and First Lady and now the minister on this kind of program. I didn't realize that there is a plan for all of these, but I thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Vish. You said the First Lady is working on the 63 beach.
Mm-hmm. There's an entire build out there where they're working to make that into a beautiful tourist area where people from 63 and Barbies could enjoy, but where people also from all over Guyana can go. But they're maintaining the historic value of the area. And so so in everything we do in Guyana,
and the diaspora looks forward to coming there as well.
Yeah. So what we want to do is, and what President Ali has been very clear about, is while we want a certain level of modernity and we want to make sure, the place looks like modern Guyana and modern cities, we also want to keep the value of our beautiful architecture and our historic sites. So it's a combination of restoring and rebuilding, or building from new. And so that's going to be the unique part of what we're doing. Right now, we're working with the King's Foundation to try to get that hybrid blend of restoring Georgetown, because Georgetown is really, really beautiful with our trees and our avenues and our old architecture and our Dutch buildings and so on. But also adding to that the features of a modern city. And so next week we're actually in London sitting down. President is actually going to be I don't know if that's publicly known, but the president is going to be recognized for his amazing leadership on the environment. And so his, that's why he has his PhD in urban planning. And so he's very keen on making sure, and he's very involved in making sure we build out not only a modern shiny glass and mirrors kind of town, but that we keep some of our old charm that makes us unique to the Caribbean.
All right, Professor Boodoo.
Minister, these NDCs and RDCs, then any evaluation, say annually, is being done to see how well they're doing, and also to reduce corruption.
Yeah. Their audit. So the RDCs are different. The RDCs have a built-in mechanism of they are part of central government, like central government. They have built-in audits, built-in procurement rules, built-in that they have to follow. The NDCs are a little bit different. They are elected bodies, and up to very very recently, they did not have much to spend. They were using the income of rates when people pay their very very small rates and taxes to sustain the NDC. So we're coming from a place where NDCs were more in name only, and that's why I think we can offer some grace in waiting until aggressively training and then waiting until that becomes the new mode of operation in NDCs. But it can't just be sitting back and whining that they're not working, they're corrupt, they're not functioning. We have to offer some grace because we came from a place where they were more figureheads than given the capacity to function, because people their entire NDCs where people don't pay their rates and taxes. So it's very little for them to function on. That's why the government has been giving a grant now of $30 million per NDC to try to, buttress what they can do. Like I said, there has to be some capacity building within those NDCs, and we recognize that. And I feel the urgency of getting that underway.
No, when I mentioned earlier about civic duties, and I particularly talk about environmental and garbage, there are other things that I think are very important as you can build out your society to match the development that takes place in infrastructure. Things like noise abatement and all those things are very important, right? And respect for elders, something that I grew up with, you see, and that makes society much better.
Yeah. So those are the new. Those are hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Those are the new things we have to look at. How do we, I keep seeing people drive by with. I was at a funeral last week at Merriman's, and vehicles driving by with their entire backseat with boom boxes, and it's loud and it's noisy. So how do we persuade these persons that while you can't like music more than me, that you really can't impose your enjoyment of seeing on people, especially in places like around schools and hospitals and around. So it's a new Guyana we have to build out. I was in, and those are the nuances you have to understand. I was in East Rumville today. East Rumville, if you ever went there, is they have single homes, but they're really built out by those range type houses that you would have seen long ago, where different apartments have a different color. And then the area that we built for the futsal, which is like a small football kind of court, smaller, not small, smaller than regular football. And the area we built out for basketball, they have a whole set of cars parked there. And so the visual of that was quite something you had to reconcile, because we now have people living in East Rumville who would not have hitherto been able to access finances to buy a car. Now the entire community has cars parked in front of their homes or cars parked on these large spaces. And so it speaks of a different kind of Guyana, different build out. And so it's beautiful to watch that as it happens. How do we make sure people understand that their choices can't infringe on other people's enjoyment of quiet? So, and we have to start from the schools. We have to talk. It's a lot of behavioral change programs we have to run, ads and campaigns, and because laws are great, but laws alone won't do it. We have laws, and so we got to talk about those things. We got to talk more about them.
Yeah. And as I mentioned before, the parents have to be involved
Yeah,
heavily on these types of things.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I recall when I was going to school, the first thing we have to do is actually pick up anything that's around the yard. That's the first thing
Yeah,
we have to do.
we had to clean our own classrooms.
Yeah,
We had to we had a roster who was sweeping when,
right.
which person was gonna sweep in which week. We don't do those things now, and perhaps in the effort to give more, we may have lost some value. So we gotta look at how we do both. We don't engage in child labor, but we also don't throw away the responsibility that came with. If I was on the roster, I knew I had to wait back a little bit afterwards. I had an interest in making sure people didn't mess up the classroom during the day. So we have to look at how we can. It's a
Yeah.
new Guyana with
Yeah,
many
well, as I said before, it's 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 much easier to build infrastructure, roads, bridges, and so on, but it's very difficult to change society. So it's a major task that is there, but it has to be done because if you're going to make a society better, right? Not only in terms of movement of people and connectivity, right? You have to have a cultural shift. Tara?
Okay.
Yeah, I think we have to
Okay.
begin the education very, very early at kindergarten, as we have in the U.S., and first grade, second grade, third grade. We have to start very early on cleanliness and sanitation and how we treat the environment and so on and so forth. And I'm sure the minister is familiar with this, having done a tremendous job in as the minister of education. And if she could collaborate with her new minister of education and starting these kind of educational programs quite early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there, but you have like I said, there are a couple other dynamics there too.
Okay. I think we're about to close in time, but I just want to run through quickly some of the comments that viewers had. Um, they're very positive. One viewer just wrote, "I love this minister, an inspiration." Another one say, "Awesome." Another one say, "She's one of the best ministers." And I think all of us in this panel endorse those sentiments.
Indeed.
We have, we wish that others can be equally aggressive in their work and committed and passionate. Most of all, this minister is a people-oriented minister. We all know that. Everybody knows that, and she's doing a terrific job. Now, Professor Budi, your last statement, Dr. Vishnu, your last statement before we ask the Honorable Minister to do the closing remarks.
I
Uh,
I might turn to her for a closing remarks.
Professor Budi?
yeah. Well, I echo what you said about the minister, but I have one other question though. If you look at the NDC and RDC, there's a need for labor to do some of the work they have. Is it easy to get people to work in Guyana?
That's a hard question. Yes and no. It's easy to get people. Well, people want to work. Some people, but we don't have enough people for what's happening. It's simply a reality. We do not have enough people for what's happening. The private sector heads and businessmen will tell you that. I could tell you from even the perspective of getting, and I mean, it shouldn't be our problem. We have to be conscious of it when we're doing. We just built out. We moved from 30% of our children being able to access secondary education to it being in 1992, to it being 55% in
Wow.
2020. And so we move at 25%. But from 2020 to 2025, because we built or were building 4 secondary schools, we moved that figure from 55% to about 98%. And the biggest dearth was in the hinterland communities, 1, 7, 8, and 9. In regions 1, 7, 8, and 9, we have built or are building 25 secondary schools, and the rest were on the coast. Now, the biggest complaint of the contractors, many of who ran over time, was that they had labor shortages, and those were real. labor shortages, and it's not something you can close your eyes to. The pace at which the country is going, I don't believe, and it's evident in the complaints made by the private sector as well as what we physically see before us. We don't have a number of people here who can or who want to work in some of those fields. We simply don't have some of the skills that we need. There's a severe shortage of engineers and people who have skill sets in the engineering fields. Mightn't be a full engineer, but people who have skill sets in carpentry and masonry and those kinds of things. And it's undeniably a fact that we have shortages. So.
All right. Thank you, Minister. We'd like you to make a closing
Yeah. Well,
remarks.
thank you for your invitation and your very kind remarks. I have always been, or my view is, if you're going to take a job like this, it has to be worth something, because there are lost opportunities when you come into public service, and if we're going to give up those opportunities and freedoms, then it must be worth something. And I see myself only as a servant of people. But the good thing is, I don't do this alone. It's a team. It's a team of members of a cabinet, and even members of parliament, and even people who are not made up in the cabinet and parliament. So behind me, I have, I'm trying to build out also, along with the staff I met at local government, a strong, capable team of persons that will develop all these things we're talking about: play parks and green spaces and IT solutions and markets, and look at how education is managed in the region, look at how health is managed in the regions. And so it's a team of persons we have working, and we are your servants. That's how we see ourselves.
Okay, we thank you very much, and we hope to have you back in another couple of months' time, maybe after the budget, after you work a few months and get a little more acquainted with your ministry.
Yeah, but I also wanted to say that thank you. The dedication of this team to get out to the diaspora, what's happening again, is very admirable. And I know that outside of this program, you have stayed committed to the Guyana cause when it wasn't easy to stay committed to the Guyana cause, and when we really needed that as a country, as a political party. And it does not go unnoticed. We're very grateful for the work you do in the diaspora. We thank you, and the people of the diaspora who continue to pay attention to what's happening in Guyana and to contribute in their own ways.
All right, thank you. But the program is going to close, but just stick with just a minute or two. I just want to
Sure.
raise a few